All right, here we go. I got it all working. Got the CJ uploaded. I got the DeMeco uploaded, and I know Rick said that CJ just said his typical stuff. I haven't heard it yet. I want to hear the typical stuff and expound upon it. If you guys listened to the radio show this morning, I may have sounded, I might have sounded almost like a little negative, and I was getting that vibe from people. They were upset that they wanted a pep talk. Listen, this is the way I operate. I try to remember that every single team in the NFL from number 1 through number 32 can absolutely destroy you if they catch you sleeping. So early in the week, especially when it's a team like the Ravens, that's really honestly one of the best teams we've seen in a while. I'm gonna start harping on all of the stuff that they can do to eviscerate you, and then over the course of the week, I start talking myself into it. That's part of the fun. It makes me feel things. I want to feel things, but not actual things, just things like football, and then ignore all the other stuff. Here's CJ. I don't know. I boosted the audio on the questions, so I don't know what the questions are like I typically do when I have the transcripts. So I boosted it. We'll see if we can hear what they say. This one, I know I can't hear the question at all.
Yeah, we've grown in a multitude of areas.
He said we've grown in a multitude of areas, so I'm guessing he was asked, have you grown in a multitude of areas?
I think at that point we weren't really identified as who we are now, and
okay, he's answering compared to week 1 versus the Ravens.
We've grown in a lot of aspects. A lot of more experience up front now, both offensively, defensively, and special teams. So I think we've grown in a lot of places.
There's a narrative on the outside that since you guys are in the divisional round now, they didn't expect that, so you guys are playing with house money. What's your mindset when you hear that thought process?
Okay, so there's a narrative on the outside that you guys are playing with house money. What's your thought on that?
That's not my thought process or our teams. We're just doing our job. We don't really pay attention to what people say. It's not up to them on what goes on the field. So it's really just up to us to go out there and do our jobs. And we believe in ourselves, and we trust in ourselves to win games and hopefully win this game. We have complete confidence in ourselves. So we're not really worried about what everybody else got to say.
I would have liked if he had said, yeah, we're playing with house money. Win or lose, I'm not really too worried about this one. Like, I like to get to a certain spot in life and then just sit pat.
You mentioned that you felt like y'all are playing your best football right now. Obviously, y'all are a much different team than y'all were week 1. And I recall Bobby saying that he felt like you get down on the same page about after that second game. Y'all really locked together. What do you think it took to get on that same page where y'all are really clicking together, understanding each other, and playing the way y'all are playing now?
So I believe that was Cody Davis asking about how he and Bobby seem to be on the same page. How did you get to that spot? Him and Bobby Slowick, the offensive coordinator.
Just time, things don't happen overnight, especially in football. It takes a little time, and for us, the best teacher is experience. So just experience out there, and when the bullets are really flying, so the time and just the real in-game experiences help our relationship grow and our communication and things like that. So
I think the biggest thing about CJ and Slowick working in conjunction, where it really felt like a culmination of a lot of things in that Ravens game, in that Browns game, was that the patience to set things up and really the way they attacked outside the numbers in that game, where they were, frustratingly at times pounding the ball up the middle for very little yardage, but how all of that set things up on the perimeter, and then also using the stuff on the perimeter to set up stuff on the other perimeter, like on that one touchdown drive. They just, everything's starting to feel tied together. When you think about a Gary Kubiak or Kyle Shanahan offense, ultimately what it looks like almost aesthetically, is that every play is tied to the other plays, that you don't run a play without thinking about how it might set something else later. And I think to get CJ on that level already, to almost where you understand the psychology of the play calling, that part's been really cool to watch with these two. I've got thoughts on him and Bobby Slowick potentially being broken up that I'll save until the end here.
What do you think about the opportunity you have to put the Texans in the AFC championship game for the first time ever with the win this week?
Uh,
Did she? I think she basically. Sorry, I was thinking about what I was going to say about Bobby's. That's bad listening, kids. When you're thinking about what you need to say instead of listening to the person talking. I believe Christy Regan just asked about how it feels to be potentially on the verge of going to an AFC Championship game.
yeah, I mean, right now we're focused on going 1-0 this week. We'll figure it out after that. You know, I mean, I'm not really focused on after that. It's all about going 1-0 and trying to do as best as we can in this game.
I'll tell you one thing. The really tough thing is before the championship game. It used to be different. The only time I played in an AFC championship game, it was back when there was no bye week. You went straight to the Super Bowl, or at least in that year there was. And you had to pick out the 20 people that you wanted to give tickets to, like in the week leading up to the conference championship. So you're pissing off family members and everything like right that week. And they might not know it. I had to choose them and I put them on it. I put them on the list, but I didn't tell anybody. And then when we lost, I didn't have to tell any. I just told everybody they were all on the list. I told like 78 people. Yeah, you were going.
Pretty well compared to other quarterbacks. It feels like you sell the fakes really well. The tosses the Bobby had you, or the fake tosses Bobby had you doing, play actions. Where does that come from, and sort of why is that important? Where some quarterbacks maybe don't sell it as much as you do.
Okay, he was asked about executing fakes and how important that is, and where does that come from? Because some quarterbacks don't sell it as well as you do. Yes. As a former defensive player who used to be just dread going against Kubiak offenses or offenses like that, the play action is just a mother because they execute the fake so well.
I mean, that's how I've been coached my whole life. Really, is just the better sell you get, the easier the windows are, and the more you get for the defense to react, which is a good thing. So and then that's what they teach here, which is right up my alley when I got here. So just been getting better at that, and I feel like it has a lot of positives to it.
I would add to that the one thing that the defense did a much better job of last week, even though it was a little dicey early on, was just doing the run pass keys. That's what this defense, man, because they can get victimized by play action at times. The weeks that they look really good or when they're really clicking, it's when they recognize, and that all comes back to experience. DeMeco coaching them up on whatever tells a team might have. But man, Denzel Perryman especially, looked like he had a really good read on run pass. And like that going versus the Ravens, hopefully haven't seen them once before. It's always, you can pick up things on film. Sometimes you pick up things on film and you think you might know something, but then you got to actually like be out there for a full quarter or two before you really see it at field level. And that's just with experience. That's why going against divisional opponents, it gets tougher and tougher the more you see those guys, because everybody's picking up on those little things. So hopefully this will be like a divisional game where the better team won the first time, but now you got a little bit of a beat, even though the Ravens are a lot different.
On that play that you and DeMeco weren't able to hook up on that long pass, when you came to the sidelines, one of the first people to greet you and talk to you was Tank. How important was it to just have Tank around on Saturday?
So he said when he came to the sideline, after whichever play it was, one of the first people to greet him was Tank Dell. How important was that?
It was cool. Yeah, Tank is definitely somebody who we love to have around. Of course, he's still part of this team. He's definitely the most, I would say, like the most outgoing person on this team for sure. Just how he acts, his vibe, his positivity rubs off on everybody. So I love having Tank around. I'm constantly around him a lot still. So it's really just a blessing to have a guy like that to still be joyful in a moment where he's going through a lot.
Yeah, and somebody asked about Tank Dell coming back from IR, just so in case anybody had that question. No, he can't. The Texans are out of elevations for bringing people back from IR, and I think anyway. I mean, he did break his leg. Okay, depending on how simple a fracture it was, maybe he could be back by now. But he doesn't look like he's like restraining himself from running out there. I think he's moving kind of pretty methodically. Now that I think about it, I don't know if I've. We already got him injured by him being somewhere he probably wasn't supposed to be on the goal line. I think he was looking for work himself on that play. But like, it's okay. I'd prefer not to get him hurt by him being on the sideline. Maybe they're trying to tell him that. Oh, let's not think about that. I'm being too negative. It's fine. Oh yeah, this too. Where is it? Oh yeah, like me and all that stuff. Like me for the algorithm and all and the engagement. Blah.
Since he came back from the injury, like the last 7 games, how has it been working with Juice Wells, especially considering that he was out for half the season? I remember like training camp, you guys really establishing.
He's asking how is it working with Juice Scruggs, especially with him having been out for such a large chunk of time. So Juice Scruggs, left guard, trained to play center, pressed into duty at left guard.
Hey, Juice has been doing amazing. He's been a really pivotal part to our success lately. And I know ever since he's gotten back, he's been really happy to be playing. I know it was hard for him to be out. So I think he's done a great job up there, him and LT holding the left side down and just communicating well and trying their best to gain a lot of trust and chemistry in a little amount of time, which I think they've done a great job of. So Juice is very talented, and I'm super excited to be working here for the next couple of years.
I think one other thing that Slowick and everybody else, all the coaches have done a good job of as the season's gone along, is I think creating more coordination between Tunsil and Scruggs and or whichever left guard was there. In the past, at times, those guys have all seemed like kind of independent contractors almost as they're blocking in previous seasons. It's much more of a coordinated affair now, and having Tunsil out there able to work on an island or able to slide down, like that's helped a lot. It helps me be patient with the run game at times, because one of the things they're doing to protect CJ Moore is just to have a whole bunch of bodies in there. If you've got a fullback, if you've got 2 tight ends, whichever formations they're using, more bodies the better, and that helps those guys out.
Warren was in town last week. He's been singing your praises. Undoubtedly, you know his history with this city. I think there are 5 black starting quarterbacks in this NFL playoffs. What can you say about that representation, and has Warren Moon had any kind of impact on you personally?
Yeah.
Okay, so the question was about Warren Moon and what impact has he had on him personally?
I mean, my dad used to show me highlights of him growing up, him and Randall Cunningham, and just showed me like how much of a pure passer Warren Moon was, which I could really appreciate. So yeah, he paved a way for quarterbacks like myself and other quarterbacks, and I think he did at a high level for a long time, you know, and finally people are giving him respect that he definitely deserves. So I appreciate him, and I know he reached out to me not so long ago, and it just meant a lot, just because I mean he was somebody who I looked up to growing up, and I'm blessed enough to be able just to be in contact and with them and things like that.
I wonder too. They had that foundation with Warren Moon, Andre Ware, Vince Young, and for a while Deshaun Watson also. But to help support, I think it was I think it was kids with single mothers or quarterbacks, whatever it was. I wonder if they're pulling CJ into that as well. It's a really cool charity. Yeah, we were we were talking about douchebags. Just specific, no douchebags that you know, just specific douchebags. Where's Pendy? All right, sorry guys, I was fixated on D-bags. Let's see.
Meant a lot, just because I mean he was somebody who I looked up to growing up, and I'm blessed enough to be able just to be in contact and with them and things like that.
From week 1, that was your game against the Ravens. Where do you think you've grown the most up until this point?
Okay, from week 1, where they played the Ravens, where do you think you've grown the most up to this point?
I just think overall, I mean every aspect of, I mean, just kind of just operating as an NFL player, you know, it's different than college, especially off the field. I mean, just having more time on your hands, and just really just being a professional, you know, and I think my coaches have done a good job helping me along with like my vets and things like that. So I've just grown in a lot of different places.
You know, on the non-football side of things, I don't know if you guys remember, there was a press conference midway through the season, and I want to say that it was before the Panthers game, but maybe it was, that would be a little too convenient, I think, where you could almost see that the weight of being the franchise quarterback was starting to come down on CJ. Like, he looked tired, and he kind of made a reference to all the demands on him, to the point where I was a little bit nervous about it. I would have made a bigger deal out of it if it was before the Panthers game. But I think like that happens to everybody, and especially quarterbacks at some point. And I think CJ has demonstrated, even when he was at college, an ability to push away distractions. A lot of times when people hear distraction, they think like partying or something. Like, no, it's everything. It's all the people that have their hands out wanting things from you. Good intentioned people sometimes, but everybody, CJ's got like 700 people like in his hemisphere that all think it would be no big deal just to ask for a little something, there's just a little this, a little that, a little this, and it's hard to figure that stuff out, and he's done a really good job of it, keeping the main thing, and all those other cliches.
You talked sort of mid-season about earlier this season about building trusting your coaches, and sort of the offense building trust. You obviously have that some things now. How different or how much of a benefit is that trust factor do you feel like going into this game as opposed to being a rookie still trying, or the first game of your rookie season still trying to figure it out?
So Brandon asked about the trust factor. And I couldn't tell if he was talking about with the coaches or just trust in the offense or trusting himself, whatever it was. Some kind of trust we're about to hear about.
Yeah, it's been good. I mean, trust is everything. Something that Bobby talks about a lot, and we know how important it is, especially offensively, to trust the next man to do their job, so you're able to do yours, and so you can win. So I mean, like I said before, week one and now we built a lot of trust and chemistry together, and I think it's starting to show on film, and you can kind of just feel in the locker room how close we are. So it's a lot of different things that go along with trust that we've been able to build.
Making plays, making a mistake, or you see something that you want to capitalize off of. I'm not asking like, what did you see from the Ravens, but was there something that maybe stood out to you when you played them, and then going back to some of the divisional games, how were you able to kind of capitalize, whether it was against the Colts or against the Jaguars, and maybe you saw something earlier the first time you played them, or maybe the same time?
Okay, so he's talking about the Ravens. He's seen them before. Was there anything that maybe he picked up from them? And, in a similar way, the way you may have picked up something from either the Colts or the Jaguars in playing them the previous time?
I mean, yeah, the Ravens are a great defense. I mean, definitely one of the top defenses in the league. Everything runs through really their linebackers and Kyle Hamilton. I mean, they're great players. The corners do their job. It means sticking in coverage. Their D-line gets a good pass rush. It rushes a unit. And really, that rang true week one, and it rings true now. So we got to just be on our A game, execute at a high level, focus on the little details, and just really when the moment gets big, that's when you execute and try to do your job and try to make it as easy as possible. So in those other divisional games, playing the team twice, it's really some things that you can pick up on, but also it's been a new season since we played those guys. So you really got to just play it true on what you see out there on the field and just try to execute at a high level.
Okay, so in terms of the linebackers he's just talking about, Colts have stud linebackers. Excuse me, the Ravens have stud linebackers. But in the same vein as I think the Browns and the Colts both have teams where the speed of the linebackers and the ranginess of their linebackers is a strength of those teams. That's where the play action really comes into play. And if you think about the difference between the Texans or the 49ers when they're running play action and it really works, a lot of it has to do with quarterback under center, running back 7 yards deep, bootlegs into actual run plays, all those things that really put the linebackers in a bind. And because when you're playing linebacker, quarterback's under center, running back 7 yards, and they start and you see run, that's a collision. Like, you got to come up and stop that shit. You watch the Eagles and they run so little from under center that yes, there's a place for playing a boatload out of gun, especially if you're Tom Brady or somebody that can really dissect and pick apart, and who also has a really good grasp of the NFL run game. But even then, you still have to have an under center element. And the Eagles just don't threaten anything or anybody with their run game anymore because it's way too easy for linebackers to sit back, diagnose and see whether it's going to be a run or a pass. If they have the run pass option going really well, then that's a little bit different, but they don't have that this year. So that part of it, I think the Colts and the Browns were maybe a good warm up for that part of it with the Ravens. The Ravens are just better in a lot of ways, more sound. The Browns defense kind of got screwed over just by having such inconsistency on offense. Like, they didn't get any support at all. But because of that, the Ravens have really been able to congeal into a densely compacted, awesome unit. The linebackers and how CJ can read and manipulate them is really going to be the key this week.
The Ravens, obviously, you mentioned they have prepared like they have a few defensive time.
All right, wait, Lamont, come on, man. You're just trolling now. National media are playing nice now with CJ, but his faith will become an issue. The only reason he's not getting it now is because he's relatively new to the national scene, unlike Tebow. Look, Tebow's problem was that he was not a good quarterback in the NFL. He got way more attention in play than he ever would, specifically because of his religion. But this notion that's this is what I don't like about it, Lamont, and I think you know this. The notion that somehow the entire NFL is a big mass of heathens, and then every now and then somebody comes along that's religious, and the NFL is going to ostracize them for it. The majority of NFL players consider themselves evangelical Christians. It's a very, very religious league. It's to the point where, and I was in the first group of them with the Jaguars, where it was hardcore born again Christians who were very vocal and everything. So that, Lamont, don't stop with the trolling. Nobody's going to take him to task for his faith. They'll take him to task for sucking as a quarterback if he ever were to suck as a quarterback, the same way they did Tim Tebow.
Pressure on quarterbacks. Obviously, you already played them. So how much does that help, knowing that you have some experiences with some of the things that they can do that can confuse you, and now be more equipped going into the second battle against them?
I think it was another question along the lines of just being familiar with the Ravens, but let's figure it out.
I mean, yeah, like I just said, I mean, it's a really good team. They do blitz a lot. They do have a lot of different simulated pressures, fire pressures on. They have the whole nine. So seeing it week one is definitely good, and try to fix those problems that we had then, which I think we've done, and just play our game.
So the simulated pressures, it's always really interesting, the cat and mouse, because simulated pressure, when you bring up 6 guys to the line of scrimmage and then 2 of them bail, or sometimes 3 of them bail right at the snap, the advantage it gives the defense is the confusion of the quarterback not being able to read things. Remember, that's what Case really struggled with in the Browns game, were some of the simulated pressures. They caught him by surprise with it. And where he thought he was going to be able to go with it, he couldn't. So with CJ, that's definitely something that he wasn't bad at it by rookie standards, especially, but he's just seen a lot more of it now. And the opportunity area is that as those guys that are up the line of scrimmage need to drop back, it's a matter of just knowing A, where the opportunities are, and B, are your hot routes there and where they need to be. CJ early on, honestly, there were times when you could see that he was looking for his hot versus blitzes, but the receivers hadn't whipped their heads around yet. It was really less about a rookie quarterback thing and more about, sometimes even the veteran players just not being into the offense yet. That's what got a lot better and made CJ so good versus the blitz, when they all got on the same page and those guys were available as hots.
After your first regular season game against Baltimore, in the locker room, you and Jonathan Bernard had a conversation. We talked about that after the game, and he just told you to keep your head up. There's a lot more games coming. If you're his quarterback, you got the utmost confidence in what the team could do. How much of that did you carry with you throughout the season and where you are right now?
So I believe that was Sarge asking about a conversation John Grenard had with CJ after the Baltimore loss, encouraging him to keep his head up, etc.
Yeah, I carry that a lot. I mean, me and JG are constantly talking. He's a heck of a leader, man. He's a heck of a person, and a great player, and just that moment right there. I mean, I haven't lost a lot of games in my career, so that definitely wasn't fun, and I was really upset about a lot of different things, you know. So he was really good for me in that moment, just to calm me down and just tell me, like, man, it's a long year. Like, we can see these dudes again, and lo and behold, we do. So, like, just having, like, vets and people who you can lean on in those type of moments, it means everything, because you know that they have your back through thick and thin. So, I mean, I appreciate JG and really my whole team, because they're all really like that.
I don't know where these balloons are coming from. Hold on a second. I hit something on StreamYard that gave me balloons. I don't know why. All right, apologize about those. I apologize about the balloons. I'm really glad he said that about how he hadn't lost a lot of games in his career, it's another one of those weird things that you worry about from guys who have had a lot of success. It's like the way they were able to turn being on an awesome offense at Ohio State into a negative, which, like, I understand they wanted to see him deal with more adversity, and he hadn't really. But likewise, guys that have been on awesome high school teams, awesome college teams, they've never really lost a lot. And you sometimes wonder, okay, it's one thing to lose a playoff game at the end of the year and then you don't see your team again or have to play a game for over 6 months. It's another to have to get right back out there. And then especially if you lose 2 or 3 in a row, which even good teams do in the NFL. I thought that CJ he showed like a concerted effort at staying the course, and like you could almost see him in those early games. We got sacked 12 times in the first 2 games. You can almost see him like going through in his mind, like, okay, I need to be a leader for these offensive linemen. Obviously, I'm reading way into that. That was just the way I looked at it, was because it's natural to get frustrated, especially when it was definitely the offense. Sometimes a sack is a quarterback's fault. Sometimes, especially with a young quarterback, like it was definitely the offensive line's fault. And you could see him, just keeping that calm demeanor. It was really cool to see. And like, credit Grenard and a lot of those other older veterans on the team for, I think, really supporting him and helping him out, like almost be mentors in how to lead guys who are older than him. And frankly, like a lot of guys in the NFL have seen a lot more adversity in terms of losing than CJ had. So it's a hard lesson to learn on the fly.
All right, y'all.
Today, who's the guy on the team that?
Here's DeMeco. Let's see. Do I think Steven Sims will break out against the Ravens? It is a little bit of a rhythm changer. Athletically, he's different than Noah Brown. So Noah Brown put on IR, and Steven Sims re-upped or brought up or signed over, and however, they got a million different ways to do it now. I don't know if breakout's the right word, but I think kind of like he's different athletically than John Mechie, but in a way where you can kind of spring him on the defense without them having really game planned heavily or seeing a lot of film there too. I think that's definitely possible. Bring back the balloons. We've got DeMeco coming up here in a second, obviously. Has anyone seen Tank Dell since the injury? Is he allowed to be around the facility? Lamont, have you been on vacation? I think somebody hacked Lamont's account. Yeah, Tank Dell's been around. I refuse to believe that's actually Lamont. Somebody's impersonating Lamont. Got his avatar and everything. Hey, Tim Green. Tim, I know. Tim was Tim. We had contentious moments there in the previous one. It was all in good fun. It was all in good fun after Tim Green told me it was all in good fun. You see him now manipulating the pocket to help linemen out. Yeah, boy, that last game, he's done such a good job compared to that Ravens game, especially. And actually, I think about it. I think it was the Patriots game in the preseason when there were a couple moments when they focused in on him scrambling, and you could see almost like the panic, for lack of a better word, not panic, but that he was a little bit out of options and a little bit just running towards the line of scrimmage without really a plan. That's changed 180 degrees since then. I thought he had already gotten better at it by the Ravens game, but that's really improved. That's a really good point. GJ78. Ravens were supposed to go to a more passing type offense. What happened with that? Lamar ran. I know. You know what, Frank? What's interesting though? It's weird. Like the Ravens statistics don't necessarily really show what kind of a team they are. Yes, he ran and he ran for a lot. He ran more than any other quarterback, but he also did. For one, like he's got less yards running after contact than he typically does. Um, there's a certain judiciousness in when he runs and how he chooses to run now. And I think there's more times where in the past he may have run, but he's using it to buy time in the pocket, or he kind of uses, he muscled up a little bit, and he looks a little bit almost like a Steve McNair type, where, oh, you're just not going to get him down, huh? Okay. So the passing game has definitely become more evolved and more advanced. They've become more diverse as an offense. The thing about them is that they're two tight ends. They've got four main options at receiver, and like at any given time, 50% of them are tight ends. So they've got more tight end. They've got more from Likely and Andrews. They've got, but I believe those two have more touchdowns than the rest of the receivers. So, or at least the other two leading receivers. So it's very balanced between the receivers and the tight ends. That's one area of concern for the Texans, where like from week to week, the linebacker and the safety play, sometimes it's really promising. Other times it looks like they take two steps back. So far, since the Texans have been in this back against the wall mentality, you've gotten pretty sharp play in the passing game from the linebackers. The linebackers did not look good versus the run in the Colts game. I think at least a little bit of that was an on-the-fly emphasis on clogging up the zones in the pass game and kind of letting Taylor do what he was going to do. A little bit of a modified Giants versus the Bills in the Super Bowl versus Thurman Thomas type of game plan. But that's really the big key. The linebackers for both these teams this week are really going to be a huge key. Can CJ manipulate and take advantage of the linebackers for the Ravens, because they're really good? Can the Texans linebackers look like the better version of themselves? They've had some really, really promising games this year. It's just when it's ugly, it gets really ugly. Okay, DeMeco Ryans.
It's no big deal. He absolutely loves it. He just talks about it.
Okay, so I think this is a question about the cold and like whether people care about it or don't care about it.
Only me. No, it was good to experience just what the weather would be like, very similar to how the weather would be in Baltimore. But again, as I said yesterday, it's what an opportunity we have, before us, and I don't think our guys will be worried about weather, and that won't be an issue, right? It's one of those things where, of course, you embrace the suck and you move on, right, and just go attack it with everything you have. Don't worry about the weather, or worry about executing and playing good football.
Embrace the suck. I do love that mantra. That's a kind of a very special ops military mantra, except that the only thing with embrace the suck is that I think it only works for people that are like kind of wired to embrace the suck. It's really hard to tell somebody who doesn't like almost like genetically embrace the suck to embrace the suck, because they're not buying it. So I think the key is getting a bunch of guys on your team that do embrace the suck. And the other part of it is it's really not going to suck that much. Right now, the forecast is 29 degrees in Baltimore. Today, it felt I've gotten so soft. It felt colder than 29, but I think it was 29. It's so terrifying driving on these roads, not because it's only on the overpasses and everything that's bad. And I don't worry about it myself personally. It's when you see somebody coming up, flying behind you in a rear wheel drive car going 80, and you're just like, oh, we're coming up on a curve, man. Why are you doing this? But anyway, I think the players were like, it's not going to be windy. It's not going to be rainy. It's not going to be like the worst is freezing rain or wintry mix. Those are the worst for football. I think it's going to be pretty nice, actually. It's nice. You can actually enjoy, like, you don't get that exhausted feeling when you're running around in the cold like that.
Any small things you do in practice, like coaches have soaked footballs for rain games or anything like that, or is it just it takes care of itself?
No, it takes care of itself in my mind.
Where have you seen the Ravens probably grow the most since when you look at them from the first year to now?
For the Ravens, I feel like they've grown throughout the season as an offense.
Okay, so the question was, what have you seen the Ravens since week one? Where, remember, Todd Monken was a new offensive coordinator by way of Georgia, good amount of success, and Lamar had only ever had Greg Roman since his rookie year. And so since he had been a full-time starter, Greg Roman was his offensive coordinator. And it seemed like for like 3 or 4 years, it seemed like almost immediately after the MVP season, there was constant debate and question as to whether Greg Roman should be replaced or not. So they finally did it this year, and he has been a different quarterback.
I feel like they're much more efficient. Lamar is playing exceptional football, MVP caliber football. He's doing a really good job of, not only running the ball or creating off-schedule plays, but getting the ball to his playmakers. Zay Flowers truly pops off the tape with his explosiveness, his dynamic playmaking ability. He's a problem in the open field with the ball in his hand. So we have to do a really good job of tackling in space. It's going to be huge in this game, right? Not just one guy being at the ball, but got to have multiple guys around him because he's such a dynamic player.
I got to look up number of explosive plays because I'm interested. The sense I get from having watched the Ravens this season, I gotta watch a bunch more this week, is almost that it's more of a grind you down affair, like a steady, methodical march down the field. You look at Zay Flowers, and he's averaging 11 yards per catch. It's not like he's taking the tops off of defenses or anything. But I think some of that is that like they're very, because they can attack you on the ground, because the quarterback can run, because they can throw to the tight end so much that teams are going to try to, they got to keep the top on everything and then come up and tackle. It's just that, and sometimes against most teams, what the thinking is like, well, okay, eventually they'll crap out. But the Ravens just don't tend to crap out. They don't tend to make those mistakes. They're just kind of methodically machine-like in that regard. That's what they've turned into. They didn't look like that in week one. Lamar was still getting his feet underneath him. That first, somebody asked that question about how they were supposed to be more of a passing team. Week one, Lamar only ran 6 times. And then the next couple weeks, he was in like the double digits for both those weeks. So, and then he came back down, and now it feels more like he's just he's running when he should run because he's a freak of an athlete. He's not as athletic as before the injuries. So he's slightly less athletic, which still makes him the most athletic quarterback in the NFL. So he's less athletic now, and he's only by a lesser margin the most athletic quarterback in the NFL.
Where has CJ grown the most in your eyes from week one when he played the Ravens and now going into this last week against the Ravens?
With CJ, where his growth is being shown the most to me is just, I would say, his calm and his confidence, right? And he's looking back at the Ravens game, made some big-time plays for us in that game as well. So, he's been the same player, but I think just his demeanor and how he's grown as a leader has really, really stepped up, right, big time for us. And when we need him most, I feel like just throughout the entire season now at this moment, like he's the leader that we need him to be. He's the player that we need him to be. His demeanor, right, on the field, off the field is exactly what you want out of a starting quarterback.
So I think that goes along with what the hell's going on here. At the pinwheel.
We're always looking to get the running game established. This is a tough output to run the ball against. They do a really good job up front with their interior defensive linemen of really eating up a lot of space. So it's going to be tough to run the ball. But everything you get versus this defense is going to be earned. Right? They've done an outstanding job throughout the entire year. Talk about a consistent defense. They've been top all year in a ton of categories, but really great playmakers at the second level. And they do a really good job up front of making you, like I said, earn everything that you get.
I'm sorry, DeMeco. I don't mean to have balloons when you're talking about earning things. I think I made that I think that was the quote I used for the thumbnail here. Earning it. They do make you earn everything. And it's like McDonald, the defensive coordinator, he's a head coach candidate. Bobby Slowick, head coach candidate. Two forces colliding. Bobby Slowick got a whole lot of airtime on the TV broadcast in the third quarter, especially last week. I was not happy about that. My biggest fear about all of that is this. I think CJ is going to be a good quarterback no matter what. However, these first 2 years, these critical stages of his development, I would really, really, really love him to have consistency. And like the analogy I used on the drive with Clinton and Ron, earlier was like if you had a baby, if you had a preemie and it was in an incubator and the baby's doing all right, vitals are good, it's growing, but it still needs to be the incubator. And the doctor comes in and was like, hey, by the way, we're just going to switch incubators, all right? Let's just try it on a new incubator. How do you feel about that? Like, fuck that. No. My baby's going to stay in the exact same incubator that's working for it. I don't care if there's like technological advances or anything. If it's working now, I want that incubator to stay the same. So right now, Gerard Johnson, Bill Lazor, Bobby Slowick, all these guys are a nice little incubator for our little preemie baby, CJ Stroud. And I want our preemie baby to grow up into a pudgy toddler. So like, let's keep the incubator the same. If Cal has to pay prorated whatever his salary would be this year, then so be it. It's just a matter of whether, I mean, I don't know. Maybe we start some internet rumors about Bobby Slowick. No, don't even say it. Don't do that. That'd be messed up. Maybe I played a false news report about, I don't know, Bobby was a communist in college or something like that. I don't know. I don't know.
What's the balance of figuring out how to approach Lamar and maybe doing stuff that he's seen before, or doing stuff that maybe is unique to your team, or just kind of throwing things at him that maybe you're familiar to him that he's had lack of success against that maybe he's more ready for? What's kind of that balance of getting ready for something?
Okay, so he's talking about, do you throw things at Lamar Jackson that perhaps he's struggled with in the past? Certain blitz packages is what I'm thinking specifically. And DeMeco, I think, has done an increasingly better job of mixing up and mixing in the blitz over the last couple weeks or several weeks. I think part of that is him getting to know his personnel. I think it's also like him getting to know Jalen Petrie specifically, because that's a tough one, right? I think the first half of the season, maybe the first 2/3 of the season, really maybe right up until the Colts game was the was it the Colts game where he struggled? No, it wasn't the Colts game. What the hell am I thinking? Blanking here. You guys will tell me. That it's like understanding what Jalen Petrie's strengths and weaknesses are, and maybe what his natural temperament is. Like, I don't know if he has the temperament of a free safety, but he sure does have the temperament of a guy that's up around the line of scrimmage. He's not built like a box safety, and yet he has the temperament of it. It's like Tank Dell, kind of. That like the blitz and their willingness to blitz and some of the packages they can have might end up being one of the big differences in this game. Because it has been successful versus Lamar at times. It's not, you can't bank on it 100% of the time. It's got to be done right.
Yeah, you can throw as many things at Lamar as you want to, but he finds a way to make plays. That's what makes him a special player. No matter what type of looks he's gotten on tape, right? He's made a ton of teams pay because of just his playmaking ability, right? He's seen a lot, made a lot of plays, so it's going to be a challenge no matter what we present or what we throw at him.
Coach, can you talk about the challenge this time of year losing?
That was a much better answer than saying, like, yeah, we got a little secret for Lamar Jackson. He doesn't even know, but we got it. Why? Why would the balloons? Is somebody paying for that? I don't think I did anything on Twitter that allows that to. No, it's only coming up in my screen. God, it wasn't like we had 287 people. It wasn't like it changed all of a sudden.
Noah Brown, and then what Steven Sims might bring to the offensive side.
Yeah, it really is.
Okay, so Noah Brown put on IR, Steven Sims brought back onto the roster. What can Steven Sims, the wide receiver, provide?
It's really tough losing Noah. Noah has been great for us all year. All right, when he's been there and been available, and Noah's made clutch plays and critical moments, big time plays. You talk about the Cincinnati game, the Tampa Bay game, those big games, those pivotal games that we won, that was because of Noah and the playmaking that he made for us. So it hurts losing Noah. We were really excited to get him back, but it's going to be tough. So we have to replace him. All right, somebody has to step up and be able to make those plays. We'll add Steven Sims to the roster, and Steve brings a dynamic ability in a return game, which I think that will help us this week. Also, just being able to utilize him in offense as well with his speed, his playmaking ability.
Yeah, and that's what I wondered. Just athletically, it might bring a different element. I think that some of the people, I think some people made too big a deal out of CJ versus man defense, man coverage, and CJ versus zone coverage last week. I think when you start to look at that stuff, you got to look at a couple things. One, the receivers themselves, and two, just like the specific matchups and teams that run a lot of man or zone. But having said that, I think that Sims, perhaps, especially without a lot of film on his route running or anything in this offense, you might be able to get him in some matchups perhaps where you can get him free. And that's something that somebody asked earlier if Steven Sims is going to break out this week. I don't know if he breaks out. I do think there's a potential with that speed that they get him behind the defense. They kind of sneak him out there and you see a big hitter out of him. That would be a very, very nice thing if they're able to do that. It's not going to be easy. Ravens are a smart defense.
You look at their off-the-ball linebackers. You see many sets of where you have a player, a Roquan Smith caliber, and Patrick Queen, guys like that.
Yeah, Roquan.
He just asked about the Ravens off-ball linebackers.
And Patrick, they're a dynamic duo. You talk about Roquan he's just solid in every aspect of just being a true linebacker, right? Really taking on that role of Ray Lewis in that defense. I've always liked Roquan since he was at Georgia. Thought he was an exceptional playmaker, sideline to sideline linebacker, and plays the physical brand of football that kind of you start to miss it in the game. But Roquan, he plays physical sideline to sideline, so really pops off the tape. And then you have Patrick, right? He's another guy who can. I mean, you talk about covering, you talk about covering up grass. Like, he can run all across the field, and he can make plays as well. So, they do a really good job playing off of each other, and I think Mike has done a great job putting them in position to make plays.
It's funny that off-ball linebacker had kind of been marginalized for a long time, and in a 3-4. Like Roquan Smith and Patrick Queen are never going to be the kinds like old school inside linebackers where guys look like defensive ends necessarily. So they do have to be more athletic now. But when you do have those guys, like the Ravens with Roquan Smith, once Roquan came in there, all of a sudden they looked like a Ravens defense again. So the Texans, I think, likewise, are a defense that ideally they need to revolve around those linebackers. That's what worked for DeMeco in San Francisco. When you have guys that have come up and be just sons of bitches versus the run, but can also drop into coverage, they can kind of expand that bubble around them. That makes it easier for the back end and makes it easier for the front end. That's when the really good stuff can start happening. And the Ravens, in a lot of ways, with those two guys, like they're like new age old school, and it's a big part of it. But obviously, they've got their outside linebackers are more the edge guys types.
Yeah, with our coaching staff, I feel like everybody is excited.
Since we're on the talk of the defensive line, Jadeveon Clowney is having a very good year. And earlier today, we were talking about this with Ross Tucker. So Ross Tucker is going to be broadcasting this game. I think he's doing the sideline commentary for this game. And I think I got distracted by a text from Paul Gallant. Sorry. So what was I talking about? God damn it. Excuse my language. Linebackers. Somebody remind me. Linebackers. Oh, Jadeveon Clowney. So Ross Tucker was saying that Jadeveon Clowney is having the best year of his career. And I said, no, this is actually what Jadeveon was like back in 2000, maybe 14, 15, 16, whatever it was that he was really he was getting 9.5 sacks a year, 20 plus tackles for a loss. He was just an absolute demon versus the run. He won a lot of pass rush downs. He gets really stiff when it comes time to actually get the quarterback on the ground. That's what he's playing like right now, like he did in that 3-year period where he was really, really good for the Texans. He had those first 2 years where he was injured a lot and kind of just wasn't quite looking like a great player at all. And then he went on a tear, but he was just never that number one overall kind of bling. And the problem is Khalil Mack was drafted 5 spots after him, and he did have that bling. So now, without having the pressure or stigma of that number one overall pick, I think people in Baltimore are really happy about Jadeveon Clowney. Although the Texans did a pretty good job limiting him in that first game.
Excited that first game. So everybody's really trying to feel each other out. You don't quite know how guys are going to be on game day, but I feel like as a coaching staff, we've really grown just in our communication and how we operate on game day. I feel like we're much more efficient right now and not overly, excited when things happen, or hey, this is a penalty. Like everybody's kind of more calm. Everybody understands what to expect on game day. We've grown in the aspect of just working with each other and working off of each other really well.
Yeah, that first game, they burnt all their timeouts in the first half. A lot of that was on Slowick and the offense. And like he had a rookie quarterback. It's not his fault, but Bobby admitted as much that like he had too many new guys trying to do all these things. All this pre-snap motion that we see now, where like Nico Collins freed himself up with some pre-snap motion on that touchdown. That was they were trying to implement all of that in week one, and I put that also on DeMeco, and I think DeMeco would agree. As a head coach, DeMeco might be the defensive minded, de facto defensive coordinator of this team, but as the head coach, he needs to be sure that he's got that oversight over the offensive coordinator, who's a first time offensive coordinator, and know that this is what coordinators do all the time in their first year. Mike Vrabel did it with the Texans defense when he was a first time defensive coordinator. That first game, they think they're going to install everything. Like they want to do everything. Every brilliant idea that they've been writing in their little Henry Winkler notebook for years and years and years, they want to put it out there. The world's got to see what we're about to unleash on them. And it doesn't go that well. You're trying too hard. It's like everybody does it in every area of life. You just try way too hard that first go at it.
It seems like ever since you stepped on the field here as a rookie, you had this aggressive, relentless mindset, and now it looks like your team here has taken on that kind of persona. How are you able to instill your kind of feelings and aggressiveness to your team?
So she asked, how have you been able to instill your aggressiveness, I guess, as a player to your team, or his attitude as a play caller, perhaps?
For me, I always want the team to just play football how I see football, right? How I think it should be played. And I think football should be played with passion. I think it should be played with energy. And I think like when you get the opportunity to do it, you should give everything you have to the game, because you don't know when your last play will be, right? You don't know when it's your last season. So it's just about just selling out all the efforts you can possibly give. You do that, right? And you take advantage of each and every.
All right. I don't know what happened there. I was trying to figure out what was going on with those balloons, and there they were.
Yeah, we were going on in most of the very
Explosive
CJ.
plays, right? That's what they're going to hang their hats on. So we have to be in tune to what they're doing well, what Lamar is doing well, and we have to try to find a way to stop them.
I think you mentioned in your introductory press conference about Stingley. I think he's one of the guys who you talked about. What's impressed you most about what he's been able to do this season?
With Stingley and the things that impress.
Okay, so I still don't know what happened with the balloons. I stabbed the place at random in the DeMeco presser. I don't know if we missed a question or two, but this seems to be where we were past that. I couldn't figure out the source of the balloons, except it booted all of us off here. I can't believe you guys are all still here when I got back. Thank you for not leaving for Mr. Beast. I know that's my main competitor.
It starts back in I think in the off season when I first got the job here, it was just he was one of the guys who was here working, right? When it's quiet in February, he was the one guy who was here putting in work with our strength and conditioning staff, right? And he was putting himself in position to have a really good season, right? Physically, he was in shape. He was ready to go. And throughout the entire year, right, what's impressed me is just his confidence and his playmaking ability continues to shine. He continues to step up in the big moments, and he's gotten better with the more reps that he's gotten. He's gotten better and shown like why he was drafted where he was drafted, because he's a top talent in the NFL, and he's proven that over these past few weeks. He's proven that he's a top corner in his league.
Okay, I get really excited about Stingley, and I was the first person to say, like, if he hadn't gotten healthy, there was no reason to be optimistic about him, because it was 2019 the last time he was like healthy and available in a football game. Sorry, I shouldn't say in a football game, when he looked like a guy that should be a top 2 pick in the draft. So that part of it was frustrating. But then, like, in hindsight, where I should have been more patient though too was the fact that Lovie Smith, it felt like with Lovie, Derek made a lot of progress early and they put a lot on him. And then all of a sudden it's just like they just stopped asking anything of him. And he turned into a cover 2 corner. It's like, okay, you should like he should have been playing in Tampa in the 1990s or something. You know, it turned him into Rondé Barber. And that's not who he's meant to be. He's which Rondé Barber's a Hall of Famer, don't get me wrong, but that's not who Derek Stingley is meant to be. Derek Stingley is meant to do all the things that he's been doing right now. So, like, thank God they hired DeMeco, and thank God that they're utilizing him. And especially, I defended the Texans not having him travel with Amari Cooper, because I felt like, okay, it seems like they just really want to take it slow with him. But man, they chose the right time to do it, because that was a huge key in that game. Obviously, was him traveling with Amari Cooper 80% of the snaps, and Amari Cooper largely being shut down in that game. I guess you could argue that maybe they should have done a little bit sooner, but whatever.
Close with Aaron and Sarge.
So about Derek Stingley, he's a man of action. I love to have a lot of words, but what do you like about that? A guy that just sort of does not talk, and also for you to decide to have him shadow when that hasn't been your tendency in the past. What does that say about him as a player?
Yeah, with Stingley, everybody's different. Everybody shows their personality different. Stingley doesn't say much, but his play speaks very loud for him, right? And I know his peers around the league see that, and they understand the type of player that he is. You don't have to talk much when your tape does the talking for you. You know, there's not much to say. You don't have to be a trash talker or anything. He just goes out. He plays the game the right way. He's been playing with great technique, great fundamentals, eyes, attacking the football, really doing everything that we asked him to do. And he was up for the challenge last week, and he did a really good job for what we asked him to do going against Amari. So really proud of him and what he accomplished in that game and what he showed.
I'm gonna Google the hell out of this when we're done, because I don't know why the balloons are coming more. If I activated something on YouTube and that allows you guys to now send me balloons, then I'm gonna be super happy about it. I just hope you're not spending that. I hope you're not spending that much money. How are you doing this? It's not my birthday. As far as Stingley goes, Stingley is really like I don't want to say a unique personality, but when it comes to dealing with the media and everything, I think that's not his thing, and he's not totally about it. You know, like, he doesn't run his own Twitter account; he has somebody else do it. He's definitely never going to be one of these people that's out there interacting a whole bunch, I don't think, on social media. He just wants to work at his craft, and like that part of it's kind of cool in a way that he's almost like a defensive back version of a computer program who would rather just like sit there, be working like programming for 18 hours a day. And that's what makes him happy. You see him before practice, after practice, out there just grabbing guys and working with them, working on releases and everything. That part of it's the part that's really, really cool. It's just the physical longevity part of it is the only thing I would worry about, you know, and so far, knock on wood, so good.
Question one, sorry. Coach, there's a viral video going around with, I think it was like Coach JJ's last game when he was in Arizona.
Okay.
And you two met on the field. He told you, go make Houston great again. In the back of your mind, did you have that in the back of your mind? And when you got here, did you remember him telling you that?
Okay, so the question from Sarge was, last year, the final game of the year was the Cardinals versus the 49ers, and J.J. Watt approached DeMeco after the game, hugged him, and said, hey, go make Houston great again. And it went viral this weekend. I think it was on Inside the NFL on Showtime. You'll be able to see the watermark. I've got the video here. Just wanted to set it up for you. This is what Sarge was asking about.
Oh, how are you, Pat? Congrats, baby. Oh, congrats on a great career, man. All right, you're the best, baby. You're the best. Go make Houston great again. We'll do it. Go make Houston great again. Yeah, I love you, brother. I appreciate you. Thank you, man.
Yeah, so that was remember that was that was before Lovey would have even been fired. That was before anybody knew that DeMeco was going to A, be asked for an interview, and B, be interested, because there were reports that there was a report that he might not be interested in the job. So do we owe it to JJ for planting the seed in DeMeco's mind? I don't know. Let's hear from DeMeco.
I did not remember him telling me that. But I mean, JJ, I think that game there was cool moment for me. I was able to be here with JJ in his first game, and then be on the sideline as a coach to see him play his last game. And man, he had a really good game versus, I think he ended up with like 2 sacks. It just shows JJ is just an unbelievable player. And I'm thankful to call JJ a friend, right? Thankful to have played with him. Truly great player, Hall of Fame talent. To be able to play with a guy like that, man, I'm thankful for that moment to share with JJ. Haven't seen the video. Not sure what I said in the video, but hopefully everything worked out. Just it was good. All right.
I'd be nervous, man. I don't know. He said what he said will do or whatever. That's one of those things you just say. It's just a knee jerk response. Like when somebody says, "What's the big one?" When somebody like a waiter says, "Hope you enjoy your meal," and you say, "You too," that type of thing. Because remember, he wouldn't have even interviewed at that point. That was the end of the regular season, so he wouldn't interview with the Texans until a couple weeks later via Zoom, or a week later via Zoom, whenever the initial interview was before they went dark again.
Do you think that you haven't made, but you're making Houston great again?
So, do you think you're making Houston great again?
I think when I took over the job here, one thing I wanted to just instill in the entire city was pride back into our team here, right? So I want people around the city to be proud of the Texans, right? Be able to wear their Texans gear and wear it proud. So I'm starting to see a lot of Texans gear around the city. Starting to see a lot of smiles. We go out to restaurants. A lot of people are excited about the Texans and what the men in this locker room have did on the field, right, to get the city excited about the Texans again. And that's what it's all about. Our guys done a tremendous job of regaining that respect, regaining that pride in our team, and that's one thing I wanted to do when I took over here.
For the last one.
Well, there's another video on this.
Uh-oh.
Talk about being able to share that with your kids. You're probably old enough.
Oh, I should have brought this one up. This is Kim Davis asking about the video of him and his kids after last week's game, which was super cute.
Oh,
So JJ, his kids come out. 2 boys and a girl, I believe. His 2 sons and his daughter come out and give him a big hug. They're all very, very young.
yeah, I mean, coming up that tunnel after the game, after the win versus Cleveland, that was a very special moment for me to be able to share that with my kids. I wasn't expecting them to be there. It's the first time they were there after a game, so it was very surprised me, caught me off guard, but it was that, man, wow, such a exciting surprise to see them there. Really just warmed my heart. It was a special moment for us to get the first playoff win here as the head coach, and to see my family there in the tunnel. They mean everything to me. Their support, their sacrifice, and my wife has allowed me to be in this position and do the work, spend the hours that I spend being here, but to see them and to share that moment with them was one I always remember.
That's one big thing about DeMeco's wife being from Houston. That's another little added benefit, I think, that I don't want to talk too much about coaches' personal lives or anything, but just in general, because I don't know anything, it's just in general, it's really nice to have help when you're a young family. And like a lot of times with coaches, especially, you're off in a city where you have 0 family, maybe no other friends other than people on the football team. And it's a lot different than being able to have the kids go to grandma's house every day. And like that part of it, you talk about like work-life balance and everything. Like that's something that wears on coaches' families, which then also, it's going to ebb over into people's lives. That level of stress that it takes to work the kind of hours they do and everything. It allays it a little bit, I think. Now, like the vast majority of the time, and with all the assistant coaches and everything, they still have to deal with that. But it's really cool that DeMeco's kids get to to be around family. It's selfishly for me. I mean, it's great for him and everything. Most important, it's good for my football team. Okay, this is really cool. This is going to be Zaire Franklin, linebacker, balloons for the Colts, and also EJ Speed, who's the other very good linebacker for the Colts. They were on Zaire Franklin's podcast, which looks like it's it looks like it's somebody who interviews Zaire Franklin. I gotta find out why the balloons are happening. But they're talking about CJ Stroud. So the first clip is Zaire Franklin talking about.
Thank you, guys.
You're welcome. Okay, that's EJ Speed, but it's going to be Zaire Franklin talking about the pass to Nico Collins, where CJ went off his back foot and threw up the prayer that looked like it was either going to be intentional grounding or an interception, but it ended up being a Nico Collins reception.
Bro, look, we covering man to man. I swear to God, I'm on Singletary covering man. I see the pocket collapsing. Singletary start, trying to break free, scramble drill. I plaster, eyes on him. Woo, woo. He break. All right, whatever. Then I see the ball go. I think it's going out of bounds. I'm just watching that bitch. Then I see Nico just running for that bitch. Nah, ain't no fucking way. He ain't doing. He caught that bitch. I'm like, Singletary just look at me like, that's CJ.
Yeah.
And that just let me know, like, dang, he be doing shit like that all the time.
That's really, that's what it looked like too. I think everybody, and EJ Speed gets into it really good. Both these guys were talking, and the name of the show is The Trenches Show, I think, with Zaire Franklin. So go ahead and look that up on YouTube. This is going to be EJ Speed talking about how CJ is just more advanced than your average rookie. And both Zaire Franklin and him were both saying, like, yeah, this guy does not play like a rookie at all.
He won't even be looking at the read, and then he got about one more look before it get ugly for him. And then he look at your guy, and you didn't plaster like, got your ass. And then this motherfucker look somewhere else and throw the ball for a completion. You like, nah.
That's what I like about CJ the most.
That's your third read. You know how degrading that is for a quarterback to hit his third read?
He said, you know how degrading that is for a quarterback to ever hit his third read? Yeah, it's degrading. I mean, he's out there degrading people. And, Bobby Slowick talked about this the other day, that a lot of things in the NFL, it's funny, man, how it goes in waves. And Bobby Slowick, I know, really appreciates this because he's a historian. Like, some of the plays he runs are like historical plays. His 7-step drops from under center and everything. Like, he's old school in a lot of ways. But you've almost gone back to progression passing again because defenses are playing so soft and they do such a good job disguising what they're doing, that for a long time it started to get quicker. And it was all about kind of pre-snap reads and figuring out what it is and then going to where the spot is. Like, now there's no such thing as going through a first read, a second read. Like, you just got to know where to go with the ball. And now, because defenses are muddying it up more and doing a better job of disguising, but also playing a little softer at times, it's getting back into a little bit more of pure progression. And that's been cool to watch CJ go through that, because it almost, in a way, it gotten easier for quarterbacks until defenses adjusted. Now it's getting hard again, and CJ's doing just fine with it. So this one, the last one with Zaire Franklin was him talking about how CJ doesn't play like a rookie, but like all the things he does that are more advanced.
He don't do rookie shit. Like, he play like he already lying to you with his eyes. He already lying to you with his drop. He already lying to you with his shoulder movements and little shit like that. That's some shit that you ain't supposed to really have to like year 6, 7, buddy. Okay. Whoever your trainer is, slow down, gang.
I like those guys. I don't want to like them. I want to hate them because they play for the Colts, but I like those guys. Not just because they were complimenting CJ, but they were doing it in an entertaining fashion. And the thing is, his trainer or his coach or whatever, I mean, he does have the quarterback coaches that he works with, but Bobby Slowick is the guy that, like the Colts don't want Bobby Slowick getting out of here. This one, I just wanted to show the little backspin of, I was going to use this as like a video over for something, but I wanted to show the Des King backspin a little bit.
Run, and he gets hit on the slide.
Like forensically impossible.
He gets hit on the slide.
So there's Des King. And this was the this was for the CJ Stroud presser after the game. I was going to use that graphic from the broadcast and show CJ, who said he was both blessed. He said he was blessed. I said he's explosive. But we don't have to. You got most of you guys watched that already. I do want to watch the little pregame. I don't know if I tacked anything on at the end of that or not. I don't want to show that because that'll get copyright flagged, and then the live stream will get shut down. Oh, I had a lot of stuff on there. I've got some film study I'm planning on doing. The Desmond copter. CJ is part of the gaming generate. Oh, here we go. UGK freestyles. Let me get this off of here real quick. Let's see if I can spark any more balloons. I apologize. You know what, guys? I was trying to work my way through all of the press conference and trying to figure out the balloons that I that I ignored your comments. Feel better. Thank you. It's not my birthday and I'm not sick. I've been healthy for like 3 weeks now. I've been on a tear content-wise. This is what I've realized. Okay, somebody help me out here. There's this bodybuilder who I've watched a little bit on YouTube. He's like this big 21-year-old kid. He's a monster, but he's got just a delightful personality. And he does these YouTube videos that are like a half hour to an hour long, and it's just him talking. And like all these YouTubers, like these pro YouTubers, are trying to figure out what this guy's secret is because he's got like 2 million followers and he gained them all in like a year. And because he doesn't do any editing or anything, it's just him being himself. And what a lot of them are saying, the YouTubers who are like, these guys spend like 80 hours per 5 minutes of video editing and everything. And they're like, what the hell? He's just talking. And they realize like, okay, he's just being himself on camera, and people like that. I mean, it helps too that he's a bodybuilder, he's jacked and everything. Like that's the appeal that works for him. So like he does with his workouts and his whatever supplements he's using to that's his editing. That's his video editing. But I'm also trying to realize, like, I was trying to learn a boatload of editing and everything, which I still want to do for my football stuff that I put on here, like actual film study and everything. But I'm trying to be less I'm going to start being just less I'm going to try to less I'm going to not think about it so much. Premeditated. I don't know. I'm not committing a crime. CJ's been here before. I keep telling people, yeah, it's like he's a seer almost. Like he's got like 4 milliseconds ahead of us in time or something. Stephen A. also hopes the Cowboys win. That alone should tell you not to listen to him. Okay, so this is the thing. Stephen A. Smith last week, I kept seeing that he was like hating on CJ and everything. But like, was he actually? Because every clip I saw, he was speaking glowingly about CJ, and it was more just that because he was a rookie, he didn't think that he was going to be able to do well in the playoffs. Which I guess, like, I understand. Like, that was more of a philosophical argument more so than an anti-CJ argument. But I might have missed some stuff. If you can't get to CJ, you lose. I agree. Somebody must have been here saying we have no chance. Buddy, I know, buddy. All right. So some of you who listen to the show or who have watched what's the name of the podcast? I'll think of it by the end of this. But Ryan Rocket, former producer for Sports Radio 610, and Figgy, producer for Sports Radio 610, they're the first ones to alert me to the fact that I use Buddy a lot, and that in some cultures or neighborhoods, like Buddy isn't quite like the way I use it. Like, hi, Buddy, how are you? It's more like, hey, but two things. Like you could use Buddy like kind of like old buddy here or whatever, or you could use it kind of like in the old school way, like a construction worker from the 1950s. Be like, yeah, what are you looking at, buddy? And like in both those guys, when I first met them, they were interpreting it like I was being aggressive or something, and it took them a little while to realize, like, oh, Seth's just a big teddy bear. He doesn't mean anything by it. So I've been trying to get it out of my vocabulary, but I can't help it. Like I tell my I tell my child and my little nieces and nephews, I call all of them buddy. I call my brother my buddy. I call older gentlemen buddy. It's hard. I mean nothing by it. It's not like I won't go into it. That's simple, bro. CJ is part of the gaming generation. Very fast instincts. Yes. How does anyone know he didn't learn those things after we drafted him? Okay. As far as okay. This is a good point. Clint Sterner was talking about it today. I can't remember who he was citing. But it was people that basically, had watched CJ that were very bullish on CJ, but that a lot of the things that he's doing in terms of his throwing motion and his release, some of the off-platform stuff, it is kind of new. It's like with the regularity with which he's doing it, and I think part of that might go to the fact that at Ohio State, yes, he made tight window throws. Yes, he was under duress at times, but you never have to in college. When you're on a good college team like that with a good offensive line, kind of like Zach Wilson, you don't really have to develop those skills. And that's the big unknown is, okay, is he going to be able to develop those skills when he hasn't really been tested on it in college? And that's where he's really passed with flying colors is, man, he developed the hell out of those skills. I don't know if you guys can hear that dinging or not. Those aren't random balloons. Those are just people. I can actually unmute it now because, okay. Texans, the best team in the NFL. Defense, bliss, sacks, interceptions, running game, Singletary. This feels like you're doing like a SEO keyword thing or something. Bloomberg ESPN is global, making money. Grammars, the Oscars, fast Texans winning the Super Bowl. I bet. I don't know what you're saying there, Alex, other than that you're very bullish on the Texans and Ripped Fuel, the Desmond copter. Yes. I can't give you the balloons, Dead Shred. I don't know how to do the balloons. Thanks, Christopher. Sam Sulik. Yeah, that's the guy. I like this Sam Sulik guy. I've only watched him a little. The dude with insane acne from juicing. Does he? I kept Tremplements. I like that. Let me see. I gotta write that guy's name down. Sam Sulek. I don't know if that's it actually, but you'll know that what I'm talking about is it's not like there's no editing. He's edited his body. If you're a bodybuilder that's like not a natural bodybuilder, he's edited his body and then he doesn't edit the video because he himself is the spectacle. So there's that. But beyond that, it's interesting. Less balloony. I'm an advocate for more lives and less video. No editing required for lives. Yeah, I know, man. Well, plus the other thing is this. What I've realized is that, because I do like learning the editing. It's so labor intensive. No matter until you turn it into a factory or something, which I have no interest in either contracting people or hiring people. God, no, I can't hire people. I would never get the payroll on time or anything. There's no way I can do that. It's that there's a give and a take. So I like learning the editing, but it's just so labor intensive. There's no, and as you get better at it, it takes just as much time. You just keep adding little other doohickeys. So you get it. It's like playing a video game. You kind of get obsessively into getting rid of the and then, okay, and I can do a transition here. Oh, and what I should really do is go find some video. I'll only spend 3 hours finding the perfect clip to put on top of this. No, you're going to get me. Blemishes, healing cold sores and all. I would like to be able to, it's almost gone. It's all, I'm going to name it. Balloons, bro. That was some kind of error. I think I should do the balloons more. CJ just needed a better field goal kicker in college. I mean, I was thinking about that with, honestly, Dak Prescott. There's no excuse for this last performance, but, the defense, boy, I have to do a separate NFC East one. I was thinking about doing some Eagles at the end of this one because I have thoughts on the Eagles. I have a page full of notes on the Eagles. A lot of thoughts on the Eagles and the mess that they are, in the Cowboys too. But, Dak had a couple of game-winning drives this year that just went all for naught because the defense and Dan Quinn's defense, which is otherwise really good, but falls apart in the crunch in various moments. It feels very much like a regular season. It feels very much like there's regular season defenses, like the Colts back in the day before they signed a couple of beefy dudes and everything. Remember, they were awesome as long as Peyton Manning had a lead, but it wasn't anything you could win a championship with. And like those, there's never any formula, but I'm just kind of wired to want a defense that can like do it hard and do it soft, like they can rush the passer when you got a lead, but they can also stop the run and come up with bone jarring hits and everything. And I think the Cowboys, as awesome as they are, man, when you have to get a stop, it's one thing to rack up stops. And that's where a lot of times teams that play behind the line of scrimmage or rely on a pass rush or whatever, they can rack up a lot of stops in a game. They can rack up a lot of drive killers, but can you do it when you really absolutely have to, or do it in a playoff game? I don't know. Let's see. I think you're talking about Sam S. He comes across as a humble dude. Yes, seems very genuine. I like the guy. He seems like he's like just very relatable and likable, and that's what and he's like, I mean, he's got that appeal of, he's kind of got like a Brian Cushing appeal for young men, where you're just like, oh, that's how I want to look. Yeah, and I want to act like that too. At least my vision of him, like on a poster. Like Cushing always had that. I was always intrigued by like Cushing, like a young Cushing versus a young JJ Watt. Like I would have been more drawn if I was a teenager. I would have been like, I would have idolized Cushing. Like that would have been my guy, because he was just like, looked like he, he might as well have either be a Marine or be in a bar fight or whatever, like or just be a badass linebacker. I don't think he was hating on CJ, more on rookies, talking about, oh, we're way back now, huh? Let's see. Do you think Stroud Johnson would be a good offensive coordinator if Bobby Slowick leaves? This is what I'm intrigued by with Stroud Johnson, is that because he spent time as a private quarterbacks coach and working with kids, he was in the Elite 11 with CJ, right? That he's got a different perspective on things, the same way Bobby Slowick has a different perspective on things, because he was a defensive coach and then he worked for Pro Football Focus, which is interesting because I think he probably saw more of the entire league in doing what he was doing at Pro Football Focus than most coaches do, because coaches kind of get zeroed in on the things that are relevant to them in that either off season or upcoming season, game planning, everything. Bobby Slowick was looking at the entire league and I think really able to see a lot of stuff. So he had a different perspective. I think Stroud Johnson, in coaching teenagers and prospects and all that, you get a lot more reps of kind of recognizing what guys respond to, how to identify what guys need to work on, like the actual techniques for improving things, in a way that a lot of NFL coaches and even college coaches don't necessarily get. Like I would put it, kind of a weird analogy here, but there was an athletic trainer that used to work for the Texans, Tom Colt, and he went off and left football and went into private practice. And I remember talking to him, and he said, the thing I realized was, on a football team, you really only get, I think the average is like 2 to 4 ACLs per season. Not as many as you would think. And because of that, those are all the rehabs you do, where when you work in a clinic with the general public, and he was working at a clinic that was specifically like knee injuries and everything, he was getting dozens upon dozens of reps working with ACL rehabs. And he felt like he got a lot better at it than he was when he was a professional athletic trainer. At least that was the way I remember it. I don't want to put words in his mouth. And I think likewise with coaching, it can be the same way. I think there are a lot of really, really good high school coaches that have had to teach things from the basics that, like, if it weren't for networking, a lack of networking opportunities and everything, would be awesome on NFL teams, because there are a lot of NFL coaches who are way more about the X's and O's and don't really necessarily understand the coaching part of it and the communication side of it. So long way to answer. Yeah, I think Stroud Johnson is A, really bright, B, like has shown and demonstrated that guys like CJ really respond to him. And C, he's very tall. It's always, it's very, very imposing presence. Every time I meet Stroud Johnson, I'm like, I forgot how tall he was. They need to contain Lamar. And I think the bigger thing too is, like, it's not like that defense is infallible. The Browns beat the Ravens at home, and a lot of it was with Deshaun came up big in the second half. Deshaun scrambled for a couple first downs, kind of improvised a little bit. And I think that's where this version of CJ, now that he's a veteran quarterback, I mean, he's done with his rookie season, right? He's played his rookie season, and now he's not a rookie anymore. He's in everything that comes after your rookie regular season. If he hadn't made the playoffs next year in game 1, he wouldn't be a rookie anymore. So in my mind, he's not a rookie anymore. And what can he learn in quarters 1 through 3 that he can take advantage of or exploit in quarter 4? And that's what was so encouraging about the Colts game. Because the Colts game, they came out and they had a couple nice drives for touchdowns, and then everything kind of went dry for a spell. On all through almost the entire third quarter. Then they have that 12-play touchdown drive that ends up being the winning drive in the game at the end of the third and on into the fourth quarter. And a lot of that was him and Bobby and all the receivers figuring out exactly how to attack the Colts. So, I could see it. It's definitely going to be something that's decided in the fourth quarter. I feel pretty confident in that. And it also, in a weird way, I'm not predicting this, the Ravens have an awesome defense, and in a strange way, it might also be Dameon Pierce's best chance for a couple of nice runs. Like, if there's one thing that the Ravens aren't as good at as they are everything else, it's versus man blocking schemes. And they're still good at it. It's just they're dominant in everything else. And Dameon is a guy that excels much more in man blocking schemes than zone schemes. So just something to keep an eye out for. 2 or 3 pop-offs by Dameon, especially if it's done in a slightly different wrinkle of a way. Sometimes the good defense is like the best thing you have going for them is how good they are, and that if you can catch them and making a really quick read, but it's a false flag that you put out there, that's where sometimes you can trip them up. Is you use their excellence against them. It's a hard sell, though, isn't it? Let's see. Houston fans, stop trying to turn the Ravens into the Browns. I don't think anybody's doing that. I think for one, I don't think anybody thinks. So my big point on radio today was Joe Flacco, Lamar Jackson. What's the difference? Nah, nobody's doing that. Physicality they displayed against Ryan Tannehill. There we go. All right, so I guess the Ravens don't have good sports content creators to watch right now. Man. Oh, that's the other thing I wanted to do. Oh, do I have time? No, I don't think I can do it. I'll have to do another one sometime, maybe tomorrow. Seth Joyner going off on the Eagles. Oh my God, it was good. But the Eagles, there's so many things. When I watch that offense and I think about, okay, what could Deshaun be stuck with if they end up with the wrong guys? And it so much of what's wrong with that offense right now is stuff that I was looking at the Texans offense in week 1 or 2 and thinking why are they not doing this? But the quarterback grew and evolved. Bobby Slowick grew and evolved, and they were able to implement everything. But just remember earlier we were talking about how early in the season, CJ didn't have a lot of answers versus the blitz, and sometimes it wasn't his fault. It was that his receivers were not getting their heads around when they were supposed to be hot. The receivers weren't sight adjusting off of blitzes and getting open for CJ immediately. Sometimes it was CJ also not recognizing it, but he got really good at it really fast. But you watch that Eagles game last night. My God, there's blitzes coming. You look downfield, and either there's nobody open at all, or it's just 4 guys turned and stopped with their hands up like this. It was like Tecmo Bowl or something. I don't know, or electronic football. It was so bad. And they do everything out of gun, which is it's not usually fine. You need to mix in some stuff under center, but it doesn't work for them at all. And the RPO game is just non-existent because they've become too simple and too predictable. So RPO, if you're running RPO in conjunction with that diversity of other plays, it's a son of a bitch. I get stomach aches thinking about being a linebacker looking at the way the Colts run it. The Colts, you watch linebackers versus the Colts, and their heads are just spinning. And maybe with another year of film it'll be different. But that's who was in Philadelphia last year, and Jalen Hurts looked like a much different dude. And I know like there's no AJ Brown. Jalen Hurts thought about wearing the glove, didn't wear the gloves, got the dislocated finger, all that. But this is a multi-game affair. This is blowing it and struggling versus the Giants and the likes of that. This is getting destroyed as a team because it's the defense too, right? So it's the Eagles defense. I don't mean to pick on Jalen Hurts and the offense. That defense and Nick Sirianni panicking and making the changing defensive coordinators when he did because they lost a couple of tough games. You've got like Darius Slay talking on the broadcast, or they were citing Darius Slay on the broadcast saying like, well, we're trying to, learn Matt Patricia's philosophies and terminology. And like, what? Like, this is like, you're trying to get ready for a potential championship run. You were trying to win the division, and you got Matt Patricia out there doing this. And many of you know this from my philosophies and theories about Bill O'Brien through the years. When smart players look like they don't understand the basics of football and they're really doing really, really dumb things, it's almost always, in my experience, because the coach is not A, explaining things properly, and B, possibly asking the players to do things that are way too complex. Like when you ask guys to do stuff that's super complicated and sometimes unrealistically difficult to pull off, they end up looking like idiots. And like, so when you're saying like Aikman during the broadcast was, talking about how like, well, this is just basic principles in man coverage. Yeah. Like most of those guys were on a good defense last year. Like they haven't lost the ability to play the basic principles of football. They're being asked probably to swap responsibilities or, to change coverage based on a certain look, or their pattern matching, like doing all these things that however much they're asking them to do, it's way too much. And they're looking like idiots because of it. And they also look like they're completely unwilling to tackle. So that's my quick 90 seconds on the Eagles and how frustrated I was with them. Oh, you know what? Let me see what this is. This is Ravens, Baltimore. Some fans won't address fans who say Lamar can't throw. They don't know Ravens football. Thanks for a respectful salute. This is the thing about Lamar Jackson. Okay. He'd always had an ability to throw outside the numbers. He was just inconsistent with it. Used to get frustrating because people would like show examples of Lamar Jackson throwing outside the numbers and say, look, see there, he can do it. Like nobody ever said he can't do it ever. He just wasn't consistent with it. That's one of the areas people were asking earlier about, like, how has this changed? He's still running a lot. How is this that much different? It's a more diverse offense, and Lamar's range and ability to consistently attack different areas of the field and outside the numbers has changed a lot. And some of the numbers aren't that electrifying, but it's because they're very balanced. Like this is where I'll get into the same way I did last week when we were talking about the Browns defense. I'll talk up the Ravens like crazy, not because I'm trying to act like it's impossible for the Texans to win, but just as it was with CJ versus that Browns defense, I want people to realize and understand that if they do beat this team, that is an impressive accomplishment, because the Ravens they're like the if you go by DVOA, they're the third best team ever. The first best team ever was the 2010 Patriots. And you might ask, like, which Super Bowl victory was that? Thumbs down? What the hell's going on here? Who gave me the thumbs down? I had balloons and now thumbs down. So the 2010 Patriots, and you remember like, oh, what Super Bowl did they win? Oh, no, they got rolled by the Jets in the divisional round. So that's where that's the 9-point spread, all of that. Yeah, I think the Ravens do deserve a 9-point spread. But I do not for a single second, because I would never say this about any NFL team. Like I would never say that an NFL team can't beat another NFL team on any given Sunday. I do think that spread is a little aggressive. If I were a gambling man, I would bet the Texans. But it's a very, very good Ravens team. And that's why I'm so excited about watching this Texans team go against them, because this is the ultimate test. This is what you want. It would have been really cool if it was in the AFC Championship. And maybe, but I don't, frankly, they play one of these other teams in the championship, I feel like the actual championship game would have been this round. Like if the Texans beat this team in the divisional round, then I feel really, really good about the AFC Championship game. So that's all I'm saying. I'm not trying to act like they're the unbeatable force or anything. I just really want to set the stage for like really appreciating in advance if the Texans were to beat the Ravens. It's a hell of an accomplishment. If Seth wins, if the Texans win, I'll do a backflip. I will. I seriously will. Embrace the love. Oh, embrace the love. Yes, yes. The more the Ravens doubt the Texans, the more the fans talk, the more fuel they put into the fire. Yes! All right, I'm going to get going. My voice is starting to go. Thanks, everybody. Like, subscribe, tell a friend, do all that good stuff. Awesome. Happy